Niccolò Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that he who wishes to deceive will never fail in finding willing victims." But here is what most people miss about that quote. Machiavelli wasn't celebrating deception. He was issuing a warning to the man who walks through life unconscious, who never develops the discipline to understand people deeply, who asks shallow questions and wonders why he gets shallow connections. We are not here today to deceive anyone. We are here to wake you up. Because there is a category of question, rare, precise, psychologically loaded, that does something ordinary conversation never can. It bypasses the small talk. It bypasses the performance. It reaches past the curated version of a person and touches something real. And these are not pickup lines. They are not tricks. They are instruments of depth. And when a man learns to wield them with patience and genuine curiosity, something shifts, not just in how women respond to him, but in the quality of every human connection he has. Today, we are breaking down 13 questions rooted in Machiavellian psychology, questions that linger, questions that make her think about the conversation at 2 a.m. when she should be sleeping, questions that make her wonder, quietly and persistently, who exactly you are. Stay until question 13. It is the most powerful, and the one most men will never have the courage to ask. The foundation of intrigue. Before you can move anyone emotionally, you have to establish yourself as someone worth moving toward. These first 4 questions do exactly that. They signal depth, safety, and a kind of rare attention that most people have never experienced from another person. Question 1. What's the one thing people always get wrong about you at first glance? On the surface, this sounds like a simple icebreaker. It is anything but. Every person walking this earth carries a version of themselves that the world consistently misreads. The woman who seems intimidating but is actually terrified inside. The high achiever who secretly feels like a fraud. The quiet one who has the loudest inner world. When you ask this question, you are doing something profoundly validating. You are acknowledging, before she even answers, that there is more to her than what people see. You are telling her, without saying it directly, that you are not going to be satisfied with the surface. Her answer will hand you a map. Well, whatever she says, that is her wound, her frustration, her hidden self. And the man who receives that answer with genuine curiosity, without judgment, without immediately trying to fix or comment, that man becomes instantly memorable. Machiavelli understood that the first move in any relationship, political or personal, is to make the other party feel seen. Not flattered. Seen. There is a difference, and people feel it immediately. Question 2. Do you follow your heart, or do you let your mind make the final call? This question creates a productive tension. It asks her to locate herself on a spectrum she has probably never been asked to consciously examine. Is she someone who leads with emotion and rationalizes afterward? Or is she someone who overrides feeling with logic, sometimes to her own detriment? And this is where the most interesting conversations live. Is she someone still figuring out which one she trusts more? What you are really doing here is inviting her into self-reflection in real time, with you as the witness. That shared moment of a person thinking aloud about who they are, that is intimacy, not manufactured intimacy, real intimacy, arrived at through a single well-placed question. And the Machiavellian layer, her answer tells you exactly how to communicate with her going forward. Lead with logic or lead with feeling. That is intelligence, not manipulation. Question 3. What's a secret ambition you've never said out loud because you were afraid people would think it was too big? Stop and consider what this question actually does. It gives her permission. You permission to say the thing she has kept quietly tucked away. The dream that felt too vulnerable to share. The ambition that felt too exposed to voice in a world that often responds to big dreams with skepticism or unsolicited reality checks. By framing it the way you have, afraid people would think it was too big, you have already told her that you are not one of those people. You have pre-qualified yourself as someone safe, someone who will not diminish what she shares. When she tells you that ambition, and she will, if the conversation has been built correctly, she has given you something she rarely gives anyone. And psychologically, when we share something precious with someone, and they receive it well, we begin to feel bonded to them. You did not chase that bond. You created the conditions for it. That is Machiavellian mastery applied to human connection. Question 4. If you could disappear for a month and start a completely different life, what would you be doing? This question is an invitation into fantasy, and fantasy is one of the most powerful bonding mechanisms in human psychology. When two people share an imagined world together, even briefly, the brain processes that shared experience with a surprising degree of emotional weight. You were there with her in that imagined month, in that different life. Not physically, but conversationally. And the brain does not always distinguish between the two as cleanly as we think. There is also a revealing quality to this question. What she chooses, the life she would step into if she could, tells you what is missing from her current one. Not as a wound to exploit, but as a truth to understand. The man who understands what someone is quietly hungry for, and who makes them feel understood rather than exposed. That man earns a kind of trust that takes most people years to build. If you are watching this and realizing that your conversations have never gone anywhere close to this deep, that is not a failure. That is a starting point. Subscribe right now and stay close. This is the kind of content we build here every single week. The psychology of connection, influence, and what it actually means to be a man worth knowing. The emotional pivot. You have established intrigue. Now you go deeper. This is where the conversation shifts from interesting to unforgettable. These questions move from curiosity into vulnerability. And vulnerability, handled correctly, is the fastest road to genuine emotional connection. Question 5. Who in your life has had the greatest impact on the person you are today, for better or worse? Notice that last phrase, for better or worse. That addition changes everything. It opens the door not just to gratitude, but to complexity. To the complicated truth that some of the people who shaped us most were not the ones who were kind to us. They were the ones who broke something, or pushed something, or left something unfinished in us that we have been working on ever since. Most people are never asked this question with that kind of honest framing. They are asked who inspired them, who they admire, who their role model is. Those are fine questions. But this one is true. And when someone answers a true question, truly, something in the conversation permanently changes. Though the walls come down a little, the performance softens, and what replaces it is something neither of you planned for, but both of you needed. Question 6. What's something you're genuinely proud of that has nothing to do with your career or achievements? We live in a culture that conflates identity with productivity. Ask someone about themselves at a party, and within 2 minutes you know their job title. We have been conditioned to lead with what we produce. This question cuts through all of that. It asks her to locate pride in a place that has nothing to do with performance, in who she is, in what she has survived, in something quiet and private and real. And for many people, that question lands with unexpected emotional weight, because they rarely get asked it and have never quite articulated the answer. When she finds that answer, when she names that quiet thing she is proud of, pay attention to her face. That is the real her. That moment is worth more than 100 surface-level conversations. Question 7. When was the last time you felt completely alive? Like time just stopped existing? This question works on a neurological level that most people never consciously consider. To answer it, she cannot stay in the present moment. She has to go back. She has to re-enter a memory. And in doing so, she re-experiences the emotional state that lived inside it. The rush, the joy, the freedom, whatever form her aliveness took. And here is what the research on emotional association consistently shows. People connect the emotions they feel to the environment they are in when they feel them. If she is reliving a peak emotional experience while sitting across from you, talking to you, looking at you, part of her nervous system begins to associate that feeling with your presence. You did not manufacture chemistry. You excavated it from something already inside her. That is not a trick. That is the art of asking questions that matter. Question 8. What's a quality you genuinely admire in other people that you feel like you're still working on in yourself? This is a question that requires a particular kind of self-awareness to answer honestly. And the mere act of asking it signals that you possess that self-awareness yourself. It is also disarming in a very specific way. In a culture that rewards confidence and the projection of completeness, this question gives her permission to be unfinished, to be in progress, and to admit that she is still becoming, which is the most honest thing any of us can say about ourselves. When she answers, and she will answer honestly if the conversation has earned it by this point, she gives you a window into her self-concept. What she thinks is missing, what she aspires to, who she is trying to become. And a man who receives that answer with quiet respect, rather than unsolicited advice, becomes, in that moment, exactly the kind of person she is describing. Think about the last real conversation you had. Did it go anywhere close to here? If not, save this video, share it with someone who needs it, and keep watching, because the next section is where this gets genuinely dangerous. The unmasking. These are the questions that require confidence to ask and presence to receive. They are not for the first 5 minutes. They are for the moment when the conversation has built enough warmth that she trusts the depth. Used correctly, these questions reveal layers most people never show anyone. And the man who sees those layers becomes extraordinarily difficult to forget. Question 9. Do you think you're someone who plays by the rules? Or do you have a rebellious streak that most people never get to see? This is a double-bind question in the best possible sense. Not a trap, a mirror. If she identifies as someone who plays by the rules, she will almost always follow with a but. The exception, the moment she broke from the script, the thing she does that surprises people. That but is where her real self lives. If she identifies as rebellious, she will tell you exactly where and how, which is an invitation into her private world, for her private reasoning, her private code. Either answer reveals something she usually keeps hidden, and both answers are interesting. That is the architecture of a great question. It cannot be answered badly. Question 10. What's something about your character that is completely non-negotiable? A line you will never cross, no matter what. Where the previous question showed you her private self, this one shows you her values, the bedrock beneath the personality. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the importance of understanding a person's core motivations before attempting to influence them in any direction. Not to override those motivations, but to work with them, to understand where the unbreakable lines are so you never stumble into them blindly. On a more human level, this question is simply one of the most respectful things you can ask someone. It says, I want to know what you stand for, not what you say you stand for, what you actually, irrevocably stand for. People are rarely asked that. When they are, they feel, correctly, that they are in the presence of someone serious, someone worth taking seriously in return. Question 11. If I asked your closest friend what your one real blind spot is, what would they say? This is the most vulnerable question in this section, and it requires the most trust to answer honestly. A blind spot, by definition, is something we cannot fully see in ourselves. So to answer this question, she has to step outside herself, to see herself as others see her, and then hand you that self-assessment. That is an act of courage. Then and when someone performs an act of courage in your presence, it changes the relationship. You have now witnessed something unguarded. Receive it without flinching, without laughing, without immediately comparing it to your own blind spot in a way that centers you. Just listen, nod. Let the weight of what she shared settle between you. That silence, held correctly, does more work than any response could. If you've made it this far and you're feeling the shift in how you think about conversation, you are already ahead of most men. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. We go this deep every time. The obsession loop. These final two questions are engineered to do something very specific. They plant you in her future, not through pressure or agenda, but through the quiet power of implication. After these questions, why, she will not just remember the conversation, she will carry it forward with her and carry you with it. Question 12. What's something you've always wanted to experience but haven't found the right person to do it with yet? Read that question carefully. The most important words are at the end. The right person. You are not just asking about an experience. You are creating a vacancy. You are making her articulate out loud that there is a role in her life currently unfilled. And in the same breath, you have positioned yourself as someone who might be qualified to fill it. You are not claiming the role. You are auditioning for it, quietly, without announcing it, and she knows it, which makes the question charged with a very specific, very electric kind of possibility. The Machiavelli understood that the most powerful moves are the ones that let the other party arrive at the conclusion themselves. You did not say, I could be that person. You asked a question that made her think it. That is the difference between stating and suggesting. Stating is weak. Suggesting, at the right moment, is everything. Question 13. Do you think we met today by chance, or do you believe there was something more intentional behind it? This is the most sophisticated question on this entire list, and the reason is simple. It does not ask her what she thinks about you. It asks her what she thinks about fate. And the moment a person begins contemplating whether a meeting was fated, whether there was something beyond coincidence that brought two people to the same place at the same time, the logical brain begins to quiet down. What replaces it is something older and more powerful. Wonder. The kind of wonder that turns a conversation into a story. The kind of story people tell about how they met. The kind of story that, once started, wants to continue. You are not manufacturing destiny. You are asking a question that invites her to consider it. The answer she arrives at is entirely her own. And the fact that she arrived at it while sitting with you, that is something she will not easily set aside. Machiavelli's most enduring insight was not about power or fear or manipulation. It was this, that human beings are narrative creatures. When we do not experience life as a series of random events, we experience it as a story. And the man who can make a woman feel that she is in the middle of a story worth continuing, that man does not need tricks. He is already unforgettable. 13 questions, rooted in 5 centuries of human psychology and sharpened against the reality of how people actually connect. Not through performance, not through status, but through the rare and disciplined art of asking what actually matters. Machiavelli was right that most people move through life on the surface, responding to immediate stimuli, never developing the patience or the skill to understand what is really happening beneath the social layer. You now have a different option. These questions are not scripts to memorize and deploy robotically, or they are a framework, a way of thinking about conversation as something purposeful, something alive, something that can change 2 people if handled with enough care and enough courage. The man who masters this does not chase connection. He creates the conditions for it, and then he has the patience and the confidence to let it arrive on its own terms. Most men will watch this, nod, and go back to asking women what they do for work. The ones who actually use this, even one question, even imperfectly, even nervously the first time, those are the men whose conversations people remember. Be that man, and if you want to go deeper into the psychology of influence, attraction, and what it means to carry yourself with real presence, subscribe. Comment below with the question you are going to use first, and watch the next video when it drops. We are not done yet. We are just getting started.